First, so we'll actually try to cover Scriptlets Cache and other main stuff today. So what is Scriptlet? So in a HTML page or a ASP page, right, you can also write a code which is a C# code, right, which we normally call it as scripted, right, where you can actually write a code uh, based on some using some directive or some paralysis, where you can actually call a class, create a class object, call a method, write all type of conditions, create an exception handling, everything you can do in direct ASP page itself, right? So let's see how we can actually do that. So let us create one web form here. Let me call it as a separate form. Right, and let's make it startup. Now here in this page, you can see till now we used to go to the class, right, and we used to write a code where we used to write response.write to create here, right. But now let's see how to actually write a code here. Code, which means we can also write a C# code in between your HTML tags. Right, so wherever you write code, at that point it will actually paint your output, right? So let's say I want to actually run a simple loop, or as a print simple, or define a simple variable, right? So you can use angular bracket and percentile. Now this is a space where you can write your code. You can write any type of code. Let's say I want to define integer, or I want to define a string, right? S is equal to some, let's say this is my web page. Right, you can see everything I'm going to write in scripted code. And let me just print. Now you can see response.write I can use only from my page, right? But you can see here I can start writing. Let's say I want to do this. Right? And it's actually printing that response. Now let's run this and I'll show you. Now you can see this is my page. Right? A simple page code you have written. Now in this page, actually, if you remember in our previous classes, we have already understood that your ASPX page, right, will not be compiled. Your output, whatever HTML you are writing, right, is something which will not be compiled to HTML output, but will be a raw file will be directly dumped. But whatever scripted code you are writing, right, so this is something which will be mapped to scripting, and it will be compiled, because unless you run it as a compiled code, right, our framework will not understand. So this part of code, whatever you're writing inside your scripted tags, right, will be compiled, because it has to, and then it will actually combine with your HTML output, right, which is rendering part, and it will make sure that whatever output you are trying to give here will be rendered at that page. Right. So this is something which is scripted. Now in this you can do all the steps you want. Now let's say I want to run a simple for loop. Now you can see here that I have, let's say, if I is equal to 0, I less than 4, right, like this, right. So here let's say I'm just writing a simple for loop where you can see it accepts it, and when I run this program, label this, and run this program, you can see we have that loop triggered, right? So this is scripted. Now in scripted itself we can even include the tags. Now all the tags, let's say you are including HTML tag, right? That should go that should actually go as a part of the string, right? You can't actually write a direct HTML tag inside scripted. Like here you can see I can define, let's say, a div, right? A division where I can say this is HTML div, right? I can write it directly. And if you go back and refresh this page, right, you can see I have this HTML div and differently. You can see your 0, 1, 2, 3 came to the next end. Why? Because I gave a break here, right, as a string. That's the reason why I got. Now if I want to print 0, 1 and 2 and 3 with a new lines, right, again I would just use my HTML tag here to break the lines and refresh this. Now you can see we get it. Now notice this, my application is running. You can see it is in debug mode, right, and I'm able to change my page. Now obviously it is obvious that we can change your HTML anytime you want, even if it is in debugging mode or non-debugging, and you can run it. But you can also change your scripted too, right? But if you try to change your class, see what happens. If I try to change this, it says your code is already running. You have to stop your program and then you change your class files and then you have to run. But in your ASPX page, right, you can directly change your HTML tags and also your scripted code too. And when you change and save, it will automatically compile and keep your code ready, so that whenever you try to render, it will actually get the latest output. Right? So that's how it works. So it actually takes HTML's internal. Now if you want to write any HTML, right, then you have to actually make it work. Let's say I want to write a simple div. Now then you have to write your div, right? This is, let's say, internal div, let's say, and then you have to close it to, right, and let's say I'm giving one break, right? So this is how I can write my HTML. Now normally we think that your response will be it will be printing everything. Let's see what it will print. Let me just refresh. Now you can see this is the internal div. That's it. You will actually get only the data part, right? And by default it will take your HTML. Why? Because your doc type, right? You are actually mentioning your doc type as a HTML. Now wherever it finds the HTML tag open and close, I mean actual HTML tags opening and closing and all, right? It will actually print your data in there. Now let's say if I don't give this, or something, run it, right? Now you can see it is taking a div. I mean, it is taking out this, which is like so something wrong in HTML, right? I mean, if you don't complete HTML somewhere, so what it will do is it will actually it will start printing your HTML tags also, because it will not understand what exactly you are trying to do, right? Let's say I'm going to give this, let's say. Okay, it's taking it, but in general, if you refresh it and write a wrong tags, right, it will actually print even the tags, HTML tags on our page. Right? So here you are actually trying to do take your now here in this script code itself, you can have your exception handle directly. You can see in our page we can't write try catch, right? Basically we can't write, because in our exception, if you want to handle exception, either we have to handle it by application mode or class mode or custom mode. But here in your scriptlet, you can actually keep the complete page in a complete try catch, and if there is any exception, you can print it here or redirect it. Now let's say I want to redirect this to error, right? You can say here response or redirect. See, I can redirect directly from. I'm not using any class here. I'm not going to use code back, but I can directly redirect. So let's say I want to redirect to error. dot spx, and let's say here I'm going to take something called int y is equal to 12 divided by I, right? Because whenever I is 0, it's going to throw error and it is going to run this. Right? You can see it actually redirected to error page because we got an error at this point, right? So which means you can also handle your exception. Fine. Now let's go a step ahead. Let me create a new class here. Add class. Let me call it as CLS globals. Now in this class, let me create a either static or non-static method. Public static. Let's say this is going to return a list of strings. Let's say, right? Where I'll just say get names. Right? Now here, what I'm going to do, let's say I'm going to define a list, right? Which is list of things, and then let's add some details. Add of, let's say, right, I just have few items here, and then I'll return a simple method where I have a simple list which have got a string as a restriction, and I'm looking. Now you can see how can I call this method from my scriptlet, right? Or for my ASP exploration is a question here. I'm not going to use anything from my page here, but I'm going to use my CLS globals, which is somewhere in my separate namespace. Now two ways. So your scriptlet form is in the same namespace, right? Which means, which your web form in the same namespace. And whenever you're writing a scriptlet, which means it will be exposed to the same namespace here. Now, by default, the namespace is web underscore handle data you have, right? So what you can do here, you can see you have your web handle namespace dot. You can see you have your globals dot. You have to get names, right? Let's say you can create a list of strings here. Let me call it as names, right? Now you can see you can actually access your class through your namespace directly, right? And you can actually print out for each item in names, right? You can just say response dot write of your item. Let's do a break here. Right, which it will print on a screen. Let's see how it is working. Right? You can see whatever we have defined right there, it will actually get the details. Which means if you want to show some data from database, you can directly do it. Let's see that part. Right? So here, before going to that part, now you can see here we have web handle, right? Which is namespace. You can actually define it every time you want to call the class, or you can define it at once. In your header, you have a directives, right? Now here you have one directory called import. You have import directory where you can import your namespace, right? Which is your namespace is your web underscore data handle. Just write it down. Right, and whenever you try to access a class, you can see your CLS globals will be access because you have already imported your namespace. Now this is how we use namespace import, and you can actually handle it. Now you can see it will give you a say, right? So similarly, let's say you want to actually connect to the database and get the data and show it on a page, right? You can do that. You can actually handle your let's say entity object also here. So let me create a simple and new item. Let's say I'm going to create my entity model here. Let me just say I'm going to create the same college model from database, and if I have it, I can take, otherwise let's go for a new connection, and so let it get here. This is, let's say you have it. I have Windows authentication and database. Let's say I have college, right? Test connection successful. We got OK, right? And let's say this is college DB context. I have and click on next. Now you have your entity frame of 0. Anyways, retrieve information. Let's say I want everything. Finish. So it will create a context class and all the schemas. Anyways, we have already seen this part, right? So now let's go back to CLS globals and let me create a new method, static method. Let's get void first and just say get students data. Now here I'm going to call college DB context. I'll say list of student, right? You can see it will create it. So you have student is equal to you have DB context dot students dot list, right? And let's say I am going to return this student. Let's see whether we are able to call this student from the page. Let me call this right. Now let's go back to script page, and after this, let me write response dot by divided by, and then let me call CLS globals dot consent get source data, and you have a list of. Now you can see you will be able to call the student which is created in your model data, right? Here you can type for each of your student, right, in your collection called student. Right, now let's make up a string, right? Data is equal to, you have item dot, now you can see you have all the details here. Let's say you have roll number, that's space, let me copy this. Let's say your roll number, you have student name, you have address, you have a phone number, right? And let's say that's it. And let's print this response dot write of data. And after data, let's say here itself I'll give some string to break. Right. So what's actually so here I'm actually taking all the details of my students where I'm able to access, and I'm writing it up, right? And now let's run this and see. So you can see you have all the details in your page. Now let's say I want to actually show these things in some pattern, right? Now to go a step forward, we have actually got all the details and we are able to show it on. We are able to show these things on a page. Now let's do some simple designing using HTML so that you can actually show this in a proper way. Now what I'm going to do, I can write any number of scriptlets. I can write anywhere I want, right? Let's say I'm going to split this, and let's say I'm going to break and I'm writing something else here. Let's say I can write more scriptlets here, right? And then I can write. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create my, so whatever we have done here, let me just cut it and place it here, right? So here you can see I can write scriptlets anywhere I want, or whatever, wherever you are writing, right? It will actually consider all the scriptlets as a sequence. Now first it will actually take this, and after it will take, your syntax should be same, should be in consistent way, but you can write wherever you want. Now here itself I can actually split my scriptlet. Now you can see I've actually taken my list students, right? And what I'm doing, I'm actually printing in somewhere here, right? So see what happens if how I'm going to use. Let's say I'm not going to print in this way. So here I'll close this scriptlet, right? And what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a table. I'll show you how to do this. Now in this table, what I'm going to do, I'm going to arrange things in a table manner. Right? In a table you have different rows, right? Like TR, which is row. And in each row you'll have different cells, which is TD. Right? You have table, rows and each cells. Now how can I arrange each of the data which I'm getting, let's say student name, roll number and all in a table. So now we know that we have to have a multiple rows, right? Which means I should actually get this table outside my this, right? Table and table. And what I have to do, I have to write my TR for each student. I have to write it. Right? Now how can I do that? Now here let me cut it. And inside this, let me break it again. Like I'll break this. I'll start this again. Now here, which means your loop will be applied even for your TRs. That's the main catch. Right? And in each TD, let's say I want to assign. Now you can see this is the second way how you can actually write. This is something which is directly assigning your value, which is item dot, let's say this one, let me see, it will accept. And in next TD, right, let's say you have your one more scriptlet. You have your student name, right? Let me copy this. Let's say you have your address, and let's say you have your phone number, right? And you have these steps. Fine. All the cells and different attributes I have actually set. Right? So here what I can do, I can actually style this table as, let's say, margin, right? It's maybe I would say sorry 1px. I'm just setting the margin. Instead of margin, it's font. Something called solid. Or any value, right? And now this will actually give you a border. And each row you want can actually take the same style, each, right? The border solid and everything. And if you want for TD also, you can actually go ahead with that. Each TD, you have. Anyways, if you use CSS, right, this override will not be there anyways, right? But I'm just taking this so that it will give you a table. Right now you can see you have for every loop, right, you are creating a new row, and in that row you are creating cells, different cells. So let's run this and see how it's going to work. So let me rebuild this and you can see we have actually created some pattern here, right? Some table where we have a simple table here, and we created actually each cell, right, in a way that it actually accommodated them. Right? If you feel that you should not have round border, let's say I'm going to remove this, save it up and refresh. Right? You have a simple table where you can see you have actually arranged things in a simple table. Right? Where you can see HTML and I've used my scriptlet and HTML in a way that I have smartly used the loop for HTML. You can see I'm actually using a loop which is actually iterating my HTML tags also. Right? You can see multiple rows are created. I'm not creating multiple rows for those many items. But in loop, it will actually create multiple items and it is actually printing this. Right? So that's how. So if you want to make it look better, or let's say these are anyway CSS. So if you run this, or let's say let's right now you can see it will be in a good format. A simple table with all the data, whatever. Now you can see that this we are actually getting a live data. Right? This is not something which we are directly printing. We are getting from database and then we are actually printing on the screen. Right? So this way you can actually use your scriptlets. Now if you go to your page, now this is your page, right? Now if you go to your page and see the source, right? See, if I go to source, where I can see, now you can see you won't be able to see the scripted part. Now code is something which will be hidden. You don't have to worry about it. I mean, in the security part it will be hidden for sure, right? Where you can see I'm actually trying to call my internal classes, right? So if anyone knows my classes and objects, then it will be a danger. I mean, it will be a dangerous thing because class names and object names may actually uh, may tend to hacking. But your page, your scriptlet is completely safe because if you go and look into your source, right, your output, you can see in your source, you can actually see the output of it. Now you can see I have table TR where I have, that one student details and TR for other, TR for third, fourth, and this and all. Right? You can see it created a different HTMLs based on our loop. Right? If you remove some data from there, it will be removed out here. Right? And it is live. We are actually watching. Right? So this is about the scriptlets which we have, right? Where you can actually see the data part when we are actually painting. So this is about the scriptlets which we have in right? So now let's move to the next one. This is about scriptlet which we have. Now, as we know that we can actually, show some data and save something, and whenever you're getting data, right, you can actually print on HTML and all, right? So now let's go to the next one, which is caching. Caching in ASP.NET. Now, what is caching in ASP.NET? Or rather in .NET. So every page, right? Every page in every page you will be actually painting so much of data, right? Now you can see here we are actually getting something from collections, and then we are actually getting something from database and all. So sometimes user may refresh this page or click on some control which makes the page post back, and whenever it posts back again your complete page will be rendered, right? Which means again you are trying to get data, complete data again and try to render it, right? So which means it is going to take some bandwidth, or it is going to trigger, let's say, to get this to trigger database and do some stuff, right? So in order to actually make it free from that, right, what we have is we have something called caching, right? So caching will actually keep your page based on some parameters, right? It will actually keep your page in cache for some time, and that cache will be saved in your local client machine, right? If some 1 million people are accessing the page, right, so that page will be cached in their client PCs, I mean in their machines. And you can actually mention for how much time the cache should be active, and you can actually vary the cache if you want. Let's see how do that. So let me create a separate page for that. So let me close on it. Let me put it as a page. So here, this is a simple page I have. Let me just take a simple scriptlet, and let me take a date time now. So what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to uh, you know render the date time here, and every time obviously I'm taking the local date time, which means every second it will be changing, which means as soon as I refreshes my seconds will be pulsing. Now let's see how it is working. So let me just make a startup page in this program. Here now you can see you have a page. Let me just so that you can see the complete page. Right? Every time I refresh, I'm just clicking on this refresh. Right? Every second I click on refresh, right, your time will be changed, right? Because every time your page is changed, your complete data, you're actually rendering it again. So that's the reason why your time will be changed. Now let's see how to cache it. Now when I say how to cache it, which means your page, whenever you refresh, right, your data will retain there for some time. Right, let's see how to do caching. Now, for caching, you have a directory called output cache. So this is your directory where I'll be using something called duration, where so it will take your input as seconds, right? So let's say I'm using 10 seconds, right? And then you can actually give just duration. Let's say. So first, let's say I'm giving only duration, and then now you have was there an error? Okay. See. Okay. I missed this one. Good. So this is a good example you have. Now if you got an error, right, in your application, where in my page, and it actually routed back to my application underscore error. And when we would have actually rerouted it to page, it would have actually gone to that. But anyways, you got it. Okay. This is okay. You have to use a web. where by para, that is important, mandatory attribute. Let's say this I'm going to do none. I don't want to where. I mean, based on any parameter or anything, I don't want to change my caching property. It should cache irrespective of anything. It should cache. We'll also come to this part, how to use this. We'll come to that. Now you have your now you can see 39. Now when I refresh, you can see 41. Now I'm clicking on refresh. Now you can see for 10 seconds it will not change. I'm just clicking on refresh continuously. Now you can see we got 52, right? Because after 10 seconds, now again I'm refreshing it, clicking on this refresh. See, it again went to 402, which means after 10 seconds, right, it is actually trying to get the data. Again, start refreshing it. See, 12. For 10 seconds, it will not actually. It will not get. I mean, it will not post the request, right? Even if it is posted back at a fresh request, right? It will not, because your page is already cached in your client. And for 10 seconds, it is there. Now, if you go back and refresh, now you can see it's already 10 seconds passed, right? Click on this, now you can see that new one. Because now you have got your new cache enabled again. When I click it again, your old, now you can see when I click it again, you have a new time and your latest cache got started, right? So as soon as you have your data ready, right? I mean request coming up, post back or a new request, right? Your cache will start from that time. Click on this, now it will start from now. Now it stay till 10 seconds. And in the 10 seconds time, if you change anything or if you do anything, right, then your things are saved in this. Fine, so this is how your cache works. Now, let's go a step ahead. Now let's say I have a param, which means we were talking about variable param, right? What is variable param? Now you can have a parameters. If you remember, we had a discussion on query strings, right? Now in query strings, each and every key is called as a parameter. So each and every key is a parameter in the sense in a query string. When you say question mark, and if you go back here, you have already this right here. So here you can see this is a parameter and its value. It's a parameter and its value, right? So it will have parameter and value, and you can have multiple parameters and multiple values. Now we were talking about this vary by param, which means with respect to which parameter you want to vary the cache. When I say vary the cache, which means now if your parameter value changes, let's say I'm going to take something called name itself, let's say role. Let me take this role itself. When I give this role, right, and let's say I will create a query string for this role, right, as a parameter. Now if you have a role and if the role value changes, then your time will change, and which means your duration of 10 seconds will again be reset and your new page will be rendered. Right? Now let's see how that actually happens. Now you can run it directly, and I can create on the fly. I can create that. Now initially you can see for 10 seconds it will not. I'm refreshing it. I'm clicking on refresh. Right, now you can see after 10 seconds it actually got refreshed. Now let me create a query string. Let me say it's a role is equal to 2. See here, as soon as I do 2, it changed. Right? Now the value of role is saved, right? Now which means it will actually stay, and after 10 seconds now you can see 49. Immediately let me go and change this 4 and change C. As soon as the value of 4 changes, it will change the. It will actually refresh your page again, and your cache will start. Right? So instead of actually changing here, let's do something. Let me create some anchor links here. you have href is equal to, now you can actually pick your URL, or I want to be in the same page, then don't give anything, then it will be in the same page. Let's give the question mark and role as, let's say this is some 12, okay? And give it as role. Same way, let me some 20, some 23, some values. I'm just giving some values here. Okay, so I'm just changing it. So I'm just changing some values here. And I'm going to change this. So I'm just giving some links here, so that whenever I click on that link, this will be changed, right? So let me give some break and break it again, right? Now let's run this part. Okay, so let me run this page now. Okay, we have role 1 and so many roles, right? Now let me refresh this first. Now you can have 44, right? I'm refreshing. Click on 42, and now you can see when I click on role, you can see it changed. Now refresh, it will stay again till 10 seconds. I repeat. Now again change something else. Now you can see immediately as soon as it changes, right? Your value will change. Now again it will stay till 10 seconds. Right, now it changed. Now if you click on same tag, right, now you can see it won't change, because your role value is not changing. Until unless you change the value, it won't change. Right? So this is something which is your vary by parameter. Right? And you can have any number of parameters as such. Right? So if you want to define multiple parameters, right, you can do that. Just do something called parameter, a semicolon, and give as a name, let's say name, and then this is next parameter, right? So let's say I'm going to use it somewhere here. Let's say I'm just giving name here, which means if any of the parameter changes, it will be changed. It can be role or name, right? If any one of them changes, it will be changed. Fine, let me rerun this. Right, so now we have first. Now you can see it will stay for 10 seconds or change name. You can see name change. Now you can see it will stay. It will say I'm clicking on this, but it will stay same because my value of this parameter is same, but it will actually change after 10 seconds. Now click on it role, click on name, role again, name again, right? Which means you are actually varying the parameters. When you vary your parameter, then yes, you should actually get the page which is your latest. Right? That is something which is important again. So you are actually getting the things done. Right? So this is how your vary by parameter works. Right. So similarly, you have vary by control also, where let's say you may have some controls in here, right? And you want to cache, you want to actually cache your page based on the control change. You can do that. So let me show you how you can do that. So let's say I have so let's say I'm going to take some drop down list here, right? And let me go back to this and let me add items. So let's say this is some something item 1. So add item 2. Something, I'm just taking some items. Right? So you have a few items in here, and let me make a post back to. I'm not going to do anything on post back, but I'm just taking it as a post back to because I want to change the syntax. Right? Now here let me make var by param as none. I don't want to change anything to that, but I want to change the wrapper control. Now, which control I want to? I have to give the ID over here. So based on the drop-down list, if there is any change, I want to change. Let's start this. Okay, so here you can see we have first time set 49. Now I'll refresh it. Right now, click on any link. Right, doesn't matter because based on link it will not change until it completes 60. You can see until it completes 10 seconds it will not change. You can click on a link because it is not going to change by any parameter, which means it is not rendering this. It will wait till 10 seconds. Now you change your combo box item. See, as soon as you change your item in combo box, right? Now as you are actually doing a post back, now based on this control, your cache will vary. But if you select the same value, see what happens. If I select 1, it will change. Select 2, it will change. Select some other value, it will change. But if you select the same value, that will not change. Right? Because your post back will never happen. Your combo box itself will actually make sure that if you are clicking on the same, it is already there and the post back itself will not happen. But if you change something else, it will change. Right? And again click on any link, let's say. Right? So this is how it will actually work based on the control you are actually providing. Right? This is something which is called as a whereby panel. Now sometimes whenever you are caching your data, right, some parts of pages you may want to skip your caching, right? Let's say if you are actually showing, anyways, I took this date time just to show that okay, your caching is done, because this is the best way to show, because if anything is changing you can see an immediate change over here. But let's say I don't want to hit my date time, I'll take one more date time, right, where I want to, whatever happens, I want to skip that caching part, right? You can actually skip the caching at parts whenever you want. Now, how to do that? Let's say I'm gonna take one more date time, just delete this, right? Now here we have one control called skip. Let me substitution. We have one ASP tag. Now ASP server side tag called substitution. Now which is used to exclude a part of your page from caching. Now here you have run server because it will be a server control, and let's say an ID. Let's say it is as out of cache, and then one very important thing is you have to provide a method. Now this is a method which you will have to define in your codebag, and that method, whatever you are defining, should follow few things. Now let me just close this first. You have substitution. Now this will actually return something, and now you have to write a method which should follow something. The method should be a static method, and it should always return a string. Let's say you are saying something called get current time something, and your method should always accept your HTTP context parameter. Let's say it's a h, and this should return some time, right? So let me just take string time as get time dot now dot string and return it. Return. Right, so this is your method name, right? You can just take this method name and keep it here. Now why static? Because in your page, whenever you are actually calling a method, right, obviously you don't want to go with an object here, right? That's why we are creating a class method which can be directly accessed. And this argument, obviously your page will take care of providing that argument, and whatever is written will be painted here. Let's run this. And this is something which is going to be out of cache. It can be drop-down change or don't change, even if your cache is even if your cache is live, right, this substitution will not be affected. So let's run this. So First, let's start with refresh. You can see when I refresh, right, your substitution, wherever you are actually getting data from your method, right, will not change. But after 10 seconds, you can see it changed. Same way, go to any role, right? Now this is where the para, where it is not changing, but after 10 seconds it will change. But when you go to your combo, now your drop-down list is something which is whose postback will change as soon as your value changes in this control. Your value, your cache will be varied again, right? So that's the reason why you can see both change. Otherwise, just click on this, add any other parameters, your cache will not change, or even refresh or load it completely, right? The cache will remain till 10 seconds and your substitution will be changing every time you load your page. Right? So this is something which is your caching you have in here, where you can actually cache your complete page. Now, do we have any caching that I can do in object? Yes, we have. So we'll see the object caching part in our next class.